In this learning objective, we're looking at taking square roots. So the first, what's the definition of a square root? A square root is, so the answer for a square root is the number that when you multiply it by itself gives the original. So square being a number is multiplying it by itself, so square root has to do with multiplying a number by itself as well. And the definition says if I'm trying to take the square root of b, that's going to be equal to a if when I multiply a by itself, so remember that this is equal to a times a. And so if I multiply a by itself, I get b. All right, so the square root of b is a, because a multiplied by itself is b. So you get pretty good at doing square roots when you just do a bunch of them. You start to recognize what the numbers are and what the answers are. But again, there's a little bit of kind of guessing and checking. But so the square root of 4, you could guess, okay, well, what if it's 1? Well, the way we would check if it's equal to 1 is you would do 1 times 1, and that's equal to 1. So it's not 4, so the square root of 4 is not 1. So the next number you might try is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. And this tells me this is the answer for my square root. The square root of 4 is 2. So multiply 2 by itself, I get 4. And you just kind of do this for all these. So 16, all right, well, we haven't tried 3 yet. That doesn't work, but 4, of course, works because 4 times 4 is 16. So you're just trying to figure out whatever number you write on the right here, or whatever number you write here should be, if you square it, you get the number inside the parentheses. So what number are you going to square to get 0? Well, the only number you can multiply to 0 to get 0 is 0. And again, that's just because 0 times 0 is 0. All right, so this comes up in a later unit about what you're allowed to plug into square roots and stuff. All right, so remember, you can plug in 0 and you just get 0. All right, but again, that's because 0 times 0 is 0. All right, so here's one for you to try on your own. I figure out what the square root of 36 is. And the answer you get is 6, because 6 times 6 is 36. All right, so these are the basic square roots, just making sure that you figure out what number you multiply by itself to get that thing under the square root. I will also do square roots with variables. All right, just keep in mind we're trying to figure out whatever answer we would multiply by itself to get the original. So the first one is the square root of x squared. All right, what do I multiply by itself to get x squared? Well, x squared is 2 copies of x, which if I just kind of break it in half, I can see that's an x times an x. So the answer for the square root of x squared is x. All right, and this will be an important thing in general, is that the kind of square root and the square power kind of cancel each other out and just give me x. So we'll use that to our advantage later in this unit. All right, but the square root of x squared is x. All right, the square root of x to the 6th, again, x to the 6th is going to be 6 copies of x. And again, if I kind of break that in half, I can see that's 3 copies of x times another 3 copies of x. So the square root of x to the 6th is going to be x cubed. And this idea of that you're kind of taking all the x's and breaking it in half to figure out the 2 parts that go together tell us that in general, when you're taking a square root, you're kind of just going to divide this number by 2, because I would take 24 x's and break it up into 2 groups of 12 to see if I multiply x to the 12th by x to the 12th. We know we just add those exponents to get x to the 24th. All right, so basically you're just dividing the exponent by 2. I had to figure out what the halfway point is of all the x's. And then you can start mixing the numbers and variables, but again, this isn't really anything different. You just kind of treat the numbers and the variable separately. So the square root of 36 we saw in one of your examples, that's just 6. And the square root of x to the 8th, again, we're just going to divide that exponent by 2 because we're breaking it up into 2 equal parts, x to the 4th. All right, so if we took 6x to the 4th, multiplied it by 6x to the 4th, we're going to get 36x to the 8th. And again, that's the thing you have to double check to make sure whatever you have here is the same as what's in the square root. All right, so you're figuring out what do you multiply by yourself or by itself to get what's in that side, that square root. And here's one for you to try on your own. All right, and here's the answer you get. You get 3x squared, again, because the square root of 9 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. X to the 4th, if you break it into 2 even parts, you get x squared. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. All right, so that's the basics of doing square roots. All right, figuring out that number, whatever your answer is. All right, remember it should be multiplied by itself to get what's inside the square root.